And we're live. Welcome back to the last session of the day, Gmail Basics and some of the new features. My name is Andreas Johansson. I'm the Director of Operations at Streetsboro City Schools. With me up there is Mr. Dan Stitzel. He's our technology coach for the whole district. He's been instrumental in making today successful. This last session will be some Gmail Basics, but probably we'll venture into intermediate and maybe even advanced stuff. We'll look at some labels. We'll look at some automated workflows. We'll look at some inbox shenanigans, and we'll take it from there. It'll be another live session, so you'll see me kind of in this camera staring intently down at my laptop, and we'll drive from there. I'm going to enable this big arrow, and then, Dan, I guess, do you see this when I start sharing? Do you see the big arrow? You'll have to let me know. I'm going to share desktop 1. That's what I'm going to share. You see this big green arrow?
Yeah, we can see it.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. So that'll make things easier. So here we go. Let's talk about Gmail. Some of the basics. I open up an account that we use for various different things. So I'm not going to show you my real inbox because it does have some some student information in there every once in a while, and we're getting ready to start the school year. So I'm working out of kind of a demo inbox, but I'm going to still show you some of the things that I would normally do and set this one up. So let's start with a quick tour. Just double checking. Yeah, we are recording, right? Yep. Quick tour up in the left-hand corner. You know you're in Gmail, right? And then you have your compose button that would open up a new email. I think everyone knows that. And we'll come back to that. These are labels up here. So Gmail does not necessarily use folders like back in Outlook. So they're all labels. They're all technical labels. If I click on start, it'll show me all of the emails that I have applied any kind of star to, and we'll get to what they can be. So you can have a star, you can have an exclamation mark, and a couple other things. Those are basically emails that you want to keep track of. This feature is new, so there's none in here, but in Gmail will ask you to snooze a conversation or come back at you. So you might see an email that says, hey, you sent this email a couple of days ago, and we didn't get a response. Gmail's pretty good at kind of figuring out that you asked that person a question, they haven't responded, do you want to re-prompt them? Come back and send emails. That's pretty handy just to have an idea of like, okay, here are all the emails that I sent, drafts obviously, and things like that. And then down below we have some more labels, and we'll look at that. One of the new features is down here on the left-hand side for the most part is your Google Meet integration. So directly from Gmail, you can now start a meeting or join a meeting. If you join a meeting, it'll just ask you to pop in the meeting code, and that takes you right to the Google Meet session. And same thing if you do you want to start a meeting, you can do that. Make sure that you allow your stuff. So if you haven't done it before, you got to make sure that your browser allows to tap into your microphone and camera. So I'm going to close out of that because we don't really want to use that. We're in a Zoom meeting, so we don't want Chrome to hijack the meeting from us. And then at the bottom, you have Hangouts. It gets a little crowded down here, so we're going to look at some options, but Hangouts is basically the chat, and it'll be renamed sort of Google Chat here momentarily for the full chat integrated version. In your inbox itself, it's very common up here to see like 1 out of 50 out of like 5,000. And we try to avoid that at all times by, keeping on top of our inbox. I like to think of my inbox as, I'm gonna stop the sharing here, just kind of like, I like to think of my inbox as that table where I put the mail when I come back from the mailbox at my house. So my inbox is that little part of the table, and I have to at some point do something with the mail that comes in my mailbox out of the street. I can read it and then archive it, sort of put it in the recycling bin or archive it and sort of file it. I can read and respond, or I can read and realize that I need to do something with it before I respond, at which time I star the email. So that's what we're going to go for today. So either sort of read and archive, and when you archive an email in Gmail, it stays in the big Gmail archive. You can always retrieve it. That's my recommendation. Never delete an email, just archive and get them off your table by archiving. Or you read and respond and then archive, or you read and realize that you got to do something before you respond, so you mark it for follow-up. So that's what we're going to do today. So that's kind of the basic mental model for how we're going to function. Okay, back to the screen share here. If you have done nothing in your Gmail inbox, you'll have primary, social, promotions, and that can be kind of helpful, I guess. Like, so it'll sort your social stuff from YouTube. It'll sort promotions if it thinks it's a promotion. But sometimes I find that it sorts it not correctly. So I'm not a big fan of that. So we're going to immediately go and change that. And so we're going to switch over to priority inbox. So I'm going to click over here on the settings, and you'll notice that what else is new is that you'll have this kind of quick settings in Gmail that we didn't see before. You would have to go in and click around, and we're going to come back to these. But for now, I'm going to go to see all settings because I want to teach you how to do it old school wise. And then we're going to go to inbox. We'll come back to the general tab, but we're going to go to inbox. So settings and then the inbox tab. And instead of this default where you can then sort of a social promotion updates, I highly recommend going to priority inbox. Google will keep track, and Gmail keeps track of who you email with, who seems important based off of who you then respond to. And then it'll put those emails up top. And so the result is that you get your top section of important things. Then you can have some starred stuff in the middle there, right? So starred emails, they're starred, right? And I like to show, you know, like 25 items in there, and then show up to 50 items maybe. And then there's a middle section that you could add, and then the 4 sections like everything else. And we're going to keep it like that for now. Inbox unread count, that just kind of shows up here, like how many emails you have in read. We're going to come back to the reading pane. We're going to leave the markers there. So we're going to say the importance markers, show them, because that way we can train Gmail. And then say don't override the filters. Now, remember what the email inbox looked like? It was just one long list of reverse chronological emails, right? Whatever email came in last is on top. I'm going to click save, and now we have a couple different sections here. So you have the important and unread, you have the starred section, and then you have everything else. And here's interesting, right? So this is what Gmail thinks is interesting. Here's an email that I emailed myself as a test email. And so right away, let me show you how to train your inbox. So this important marker here, that's what that little chevron does. It says, you know, click here to teach Streetsboro City Mails that this conversation is important. Boom, click, train your inbox. And then guess what's going to happen here when it refreshes? I'm going to do it so we do it faster. It's going to pop up here in the top section. So what you told your inbox is email from Andreas is important. And remember, I'm in a demo account, so I'm not in my real inbox here. That's why I'm emailing myself. And then likewise, you can do the same thing. Say, well, I don't really want emails from MailChimp to be important. So then you just say, oh, that's not important. And what you've just done is you've taught the algorithm to sort your mail for you. So the first time you do this, it's a good idea to say, you know, kind of go through and just say, you know, this is important, this is not important. And then as you're going through using email in the next week and month, your objective is to kind of train your inbox. And at some point, then you have a very, very effective way of going through email. Now let's talk about the starred stuff. You see that there's nothing there. And so what you'll want to do is come over here to these 3 dots and then say everything. We're going to go to more options, and we're going to say everything that is starred. And then you'll see that we should have stuff in there. I don't know why we don't, but maybe we don't have anything start. So we'll make that happen later. So here's an example. I opened this email from me. This is a test email. And I realized that this is one of those things, like I can't just read it in archive, but I got to respond to it. So there's something I don't know about it. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to cycle through and I'm going to star it. And we'll come back to the more stars. And then I'm just going to come back to my inbox. Now that I've read that email, it pops up in here in the starred section. There they are. So here it is. And so I can keep track of it. It's almost like my to-do list. So I realized that I don't have the answer, so I can't respond. So I'm going to mark it for follow-up. And then I can unmark it when I'm done, right? And then you'll see that they will go away. So that's one way of kind of using the stars. So you say, where do these stars come from? We'll go back into settings, see all settings. In this general tab, and we'll come back and look at all the settings here, but in this general tab, if you scroll down, you'll see a bunch of stars. And so you can personalize it. You can say, well, I want the preset to be 1 star, 4 star, all of them. Basically, this row in use is what you want. Now you can customize that. So if you like to have a yellow exclamation mark, just drag it up there. If you like to have a blue information, you can do that. And so I like to have exclamation mark, blue information, and then a purple question mark. And I don't really like the blue star. And then green could sort of be all ready to go. These only mean things for you. So they don't mean anything to like special. They're all stars when it comes to Gmail. You get to use them yourself. So we go down, save changes. Let me show you the results. I come in here, and so I open this email, and I'm like, okay, orders been processed, great. So I want to hang on to that because that seems like a receipt. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to give that green check mark. Now I'm clicking. So click, 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 click. Now it has a green check mark. I come back to my inbox. Now that email has been read, so it's going to come out of that top section. It's going to be read. And once it refreshes there, it'll come down into my starred area. And that way, I'll hold on to it. I know that it's good to go, but it's a receipt that I need for expenses later in the year, for example. But you can run those stars any way you want. They don't mean anything to Google other than that you have starred the email. So you can set your own designations and colors and whatnot, whatever you want it to do there, no problem. So again, over time, you'll teach your inbox what's important and unread, starred stuff. Now, ideally, you don't have more than 10 or so things starred. Like you can't have everything starred, then it's not effective. And then in your everything else inbox, you want to go through quickly and kind of archive, get stuff off your table, right? You get that stuff off the table if you're done with it. And you can do that quickly. So let me show you. I'm just going to check a few, and then I'm going to come up here to my archive button, right? I'm going to archive them, and watch what happens. They just go out of that section, or even these two up here. I can archive them. I don't even have to read them. I can archive them directly. I'm not deleting them, but I'm archiving them. And that's what I would recommend, so that at any time you can come up and search and say, well, show me everything from GoDaddy, and then there they are, right? So you don't get rid of them. You just kind of archive them and go back to your inbox. Don't forget the training, right? So if you come down here and you're like, oh, this information from MailChimp is important, you just train it. You say, okay, I like that one. What's another one from MailChimp? Imports, I want to see that. And so you're training. And so over time, you'll see that now they pop up to the top section. And then the next time you get an email from MailChimp, it'll go in that top section. The way I work email is from top to bottom, or more from important to start to everything else. And I try to just go through it very viciously, so that I try to shoot for an inbox 0 every day. That doesn't obviously happen sometimes, but I don't like to have an inbox with 200 emails. It doesn't make me effective, and I kind of lose track of what I need to respond to. And so I work very hard at managing, or at least kind of responding to them. So let's take a look at the rest of the settings. A lot of people miss it, so go to your gear box here. And you'll find that these shortcuts, they're just like shortcuts to what we're going to look at in the all settings. So my recommendation is to go to the all settings. In your settings, a lot of people kind of just never even go here. And then they're wondering like, well, how come this isn't working or whatever? But we'll go quickly through some of the most important ones. Language, obviously, whatever language you want it to be in, you can set it to something else. And guess what happens? If your inbox is set to Swedish, when you get an email in English, it'll say you want me to translate it, vice versa. I'm bilingual, sort of a dual native, right? I grew up in Sweden. And so when my dad emails or my cousins email in Swedish, it'll tell my Gmail inbox, hey, do you want me to translate? I say, no, you don't need to translate Swedish, but it's helpful to translate other languages, and it'll do that automatically. Same thing with the phone number, maximum page size, right? Tell it like I only want to see 100 or 20 or whatever. This one is really key, the undo send. A lot of people don't even know this exists. So give yourself 30 seconds to undo an email. And that's when you just click send on an email, and then you see the spelling error as it leaves your inbox. And so give yourself 30 seconds. And when you do, you have time to sort of say, no, undo it. I didn't mean to send it just yet. Super helpful. I have it to 30 seconds. Some people are good with 5, but I like 30. Now, here's what that means. If you're on the phone with someone and you're saying like, hey, I'm emailing it to you, they'll get it on the 31st second. So just keep that in mind. Default reply behavior should only ever be reply. It should never be reply all. People that reply all make other people angry. And I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. So try to never reply all, especially if it's an email that says, hey, so-and-so, here's some information, whatever. Does it really warrant like thanks or great job? You know, if it does, great, but maybe you don't need to send it to everyone, because then that's everyone else gets an additional email. I try to respond only to the person that needs it, or if the people all need it in a group. You can disable or enable hover actions. That just sort of shows you that you can work a little faster. Send an archive. I would highly recommend that you show the send an archive button. I'll show you why here in a little bit. The default is to hide it, but that way you can do 2 actions in one. You can send an email, and this is when you do a respond to someone. You send it and then archive it immediately. Because guess what? If you send a question over, or you say, hey, thanks, great job, but can you send me this information? Then you send and archive that email, no problem. When they have that information, they'll send it back to you, and then that email will pop up in your inbox. The default text style, I like Verdana. You can do whatever you want. I would recommend not using Comic Sans. Just say no. Don't do Comic Sans. Fixed width is okay. This only pertains to you. So you can only control your email instance. You can't really control what anyone else sees. And so if they have Outlook and they like to get everything in green text, that's okay too. Verdana is really easy to read. Trebuchet is good. Tahoma is good. Fixed width is good. Sans serif is kind of like good but boring. Comic Sans is a never. That makes sense. Always display images. That depends on your domain a little bit. Dynamic email is kind of cool. That's one of the new features where if you are doing a lot of stuff in Google Drive, you'll be able to respond to comments inside of an email in your inbox, as opposed to having to open up that document, respond to the comment, and so on and so forth. I recommend enabling it. Grammar suggestions on, obviously. Why would you not want some free help for grammar? Spelling, the same thing. Autocorrect, absolutely. I have found that these 3 options has made my emailing so much faster. It kind of auto populates a little bit. You just hit that tab key and it auto populates, and it makes your email composing so much faster. Same with the Smart Compose. Works really well. Smart Compose, again, if you enable the personalization, you are okay with Gmail learning a little bit about how you write and how you formulate emails, which I think is fantastic. And then it'll kind of, it kind of keeps track of your common replies. And then it just auto-populates it. You hit tab to accept it, off you go. Conversation view is something that gets tricky, especially if you're switching from Outlook. I really like it. That's the only thing I've ever used. I get really irritated with any other way because conversation view allows me to stack the emails, so I can just kind of keep scrolling down and see the rest of the conversation. I don't have to go to another email. If you turn that off, it'll create every response to an email will be its own separate email, and I just couldn't do it. I've worked in that environment a long time ago when I was at a software company, and it would just drove me crazy because you would lose track of the conversation. So I love it. If you don't like it, that's okay, no problem. Nudges is a new feature too. That's where it's, you've emailed someone. I've emailed Dan Stitzel. Dan Stitzel hasn't gotten back to me. And so it says, hey, you emailed Dan Stitzel 4 days ago. He hasn't responded. Do you want to nudge him? Yes. And it helps you keep track, helps you get better and faster at email. Smart reply, same thing, leave it on. I like to live on the edge though. So there's some folks that might not like all of the sort of added features of smart replies and tapping into, it's an AI basically, artificial intelligence that kind of figures out how you email and then makes it easy for you. Let's talk about desktop notifications. I'm talking about all this stuff in email, making it easier, but one of the things that makes life difficult is when it dings every single time you get an email. So I can just turn it off. I do not want my desktop to ding. I don't want my phone to ding. I want to be in charge of email, and so I leave it off. If you like to have it on, be my guest. My recommendation is don't do it. Stars, we talked about stars. You can customize your sets. If you don't like the yellow bang there, take that down. You don't want the star, just drag it down, and then those are your stars and use. Keyboard shortcuts, the default is off. Turn them on. Let me show you how to work an email a little bit faster. So just click on. They won't hurt. They won't hurt. You'll be able to work it faster. Button labels, icon, or text, that's your preference. My picture, you can upload a logo there, or you can upload your pictures. Context for autocomplete, obviously, if you email someone for the first time, add them to your address book. Signature, that depends on your institution. We just have a very simple one for this account. My real work account has sort of name, position, name, title, physical address, things like that, that you have to work the way you want it to work. I would recommend not having any kind of quotes in there. I would definitely not have any, if you're in like in the public domain, don't add quotes by anyone, because they're always going to be controversial to someone, especially of sort of religious, political motives. Like don't put that in your email. And then check with your IT department or board policy if you're in a school district, what is required or what you can and can't have. I do like this where it inserts the signature before my quoted text. That just means that instead of putting my signature all the way at the bottom of a long email chain, it puts it right after my reply so that people can keep track of who says what. Show the indicators. Snippets are good. Vacation responder, if you've never used it, super simple. Just say, hey, that'll send an email back to someone, I'm on vacation. But my recommendation is don't do it during summer vacation. If you're an educator, most people assume that you're not at work, so that's okay. And it just clogs up someone else's inbox. But I will say, if I'm out of the district, for example, I work all year. So if I take vacation in October for 2 or 3 days, maybe I'm out like Thursday, Friday, I might turn it on so that people know and can expect sort of a delayed response. That might be helpful. And then you can choose whether or not to send that response to people in your contacts. Save changes at the bottom. Now check this out. Let's start with the keyboard shortcuts. Here's how simple it is. I'm gonna go hands off. My mouse is over here. I'm gonna put it next to my keyboard or next to my laptop, and then I'm gonna send an email. And I know you can't see it, so I'll narrate. I'm gonna hit the letter C as in compose. I'm gonna start typing in D Stitzel. I'm gonna select them using my enter key. I'm gonna use my tab key to say hello, and then hello, Dan. And I'm just using my tab key to move on. I'm gonna say got it, because that's the first one. I'm gonna say, how are you? Look at that. So I just write down how, right? And then it suggests, how are you? So I'm gonna hit tab, talk to you soon, ... And then Andreas. Oops, I should capital mine. And then I'm hitting tab, and notice how the send button gets highlighted, the send button down there. And then I just hit enter, boom. And I've sent an email without using my mouse. Now, you think I'm crazy? Yesterday, I think I went through at least 180 emails, 180, in responding to them or writing them, if not more. It was a busy day yesterday, but not having to touch my mouse for most of that is key, because I can do it just a little bit faster, but not a big deal. You can do whatever works for you. Let's go back to some of the other options here. If you click on settings again, you can change your width. So you can go to default, you can be comfortable, or you can go to a compact mode, at which it gets real tiny there. Comfortable is okay. I like default. Comfortable is good. Compact seems to be a little too tight for me, but you do you. Theme, obviously, you can set your own theme with pictures and things. I feel like it gets in the way most of the time, so I don't tend to work with that a whole lot of the time. Inbox type we already looked at. Leave it for priority. The reading pane. So this is where you go from split to right of inbox, below inbox. So let's go to right of inbox. Then you're gonna have to reload that sucker. This is gonna mimic a lot of sort of what Outlooks look like. So if I select an email here, you'll have that email actually here, and then you can kind of go through there. I don't like it because I like one email at a time. I feel like I can't focus when I'm in this mode, because then it's constantly showing me something and I'm not sure what's going on. So I'm going to go back. Let's go back to sort of below inbox, and it's going to need to do it. Same thing here. This just gets weird to me, and on a laptop screen, it just doesn't really work. And now, like, I'm losing the list of emails. But you know that it's there, so you do you. I like the no split. So if I'm opening up an email, I see the whole email. I can read it, and then I can take actions on that email. So let's talk about what actions you can take. We talked about archiving and so on and so forth. That's your first button. But instead of using the button, you could also hit the letter E as an archive. I know the E is at the end. I don't know why it's the letter E. I think it is because it's with my left hand. If I keep my left hand up there, I can do a lot of stuff with it. So E is archive. The next button over is reporting for spam. If this is a spam email, you can report it as such. Be super careful that you don't mark an internal email. So if I get an email from Dan Stitzel, for example, I don't mark that spam just because I don't like it. Same thing for our students, and I'm looking at you, students. If you're marking those notifications from Google Classroom as spam, then you're gonna have a hard time getting all the assignments, and then it'll be like, well, I didn't know. Well, because you marked everything as spam. So only use that for real spam reasons, and not the stuff you can cook up with brown sugar, but the emails that you don't want. The next one is the delete button. Just use it sparingly. I never use it. I just archive everything because you have unlimited storage space. So I never use it. The next button is mark as unread. Everyone loves it, right? I read an email. Well, it's got to mark it as unread. I think better is to come over here and star that email, right? So instead of marking it as unread, don't use your inbox as a to-do list. But if you do need to follow up, then just mark it and star it and put it in that starred section. You can snooze it a little bit. So that's if like I don't have time now, I'll snooze it for later. You can snooze until later today, tomorrow, this week, and next week. It'll then pop back up into your inbox. But I would use that carefully, right? So I'm going to say, well, I'll snooze it to this weekend because, you don't need to do work on a Saturday morning. So use it sparingly. Oh, look at this nice email. You can also add to tasks. I don't know how I feel about Google Tasks. It's not super awesome. And I'm saying that being a Google fanatic, but it just doesn't work for me. Kind of works, use it. That's a whole different section. Just know that it's kind of in there and ready for you. You can move it to a folder or to a label. Moving it really just moves it in and applies a label. This has more to do if you're connecting to another mail server. But it can help you organize. But I'll show you how to automatically organize some stuff. And then label things. So if you want to label things, you can do that automatically. I'm going to mark this one as new so we can come back to it. But that's a little bit about what you can do with emails. So again, coming back to that follow-up, like instead of using your new and unread as a to-do list, just mark it for follow-up. So then as you go, you can mark them and then they'll disappear. Does that make sense? Are there any questions? If you do have questions, put it in the chat. I'm watching it right here. So if you have questions, just throw them my way. All right, let me show you how to get rid of some emails quickly. So stuff that over time, when you train your inbox, if you're in priority mode, stuff will follow that at the bottom in the everything else section. And you might not need to read them. They might just be like mailing lists and things that you don't need. So here's what I typically do. Keyboard shortcuts again with my right hand. J and K. Could be hard to see there, but that marker is moving up and down. And then I'm going to use X to select it. And so in a short amount of time, I can go X, J, right? I can mark it and then use that E key, which is my left hand, the E, and then I just archive a bunch of stuff. And so I can quickly go through archive emails. And sometimes that's all that you need to do. Like there's a lot of emails that you don't need to read. Because they're just messages that, they are what they are. And then let me get a few more archives here so you have an idea of what we're doing. And then it says 1 out of 12. So now I have a 1 out of 1 in the unread section, important, 1 out of 3 in my starred section, and then 1 out of 12. So now I'm finally to a manageable size of an inbox. Right now I can get back. And I'm not saying like get into your inbox and like archive everything, but here's the key. Don't forget about the Google search. So click into the search up here. And if you really want to get advanced, click this drop down. And then you can say, well, show me everything from Andreas Johansson, right? Click there, search. And in a matter of like, not even a second, it shows me all the email that this account has ever gotten from Andreas Johansson. If you want it to get more specific, you can say, okay, has the words, let's see, update in it, right? Update, and let's see what we get. That's the word update, and then maybe we're looking for something that has an attachment or could have to do with like the internet, and then now we're down to 3 emails. And so for the most part, when you're looking and searching for email, you have a rough idea of who it's from, when you got it, sort of like even within days and weeks, and then what it was about, and more importantly, if it had an attachment or not. I do most searches sort of from a person, and I know I'm looking for an attachment. And so with that advanced search up here, you can do all of that, and it's super simple. So you can say, click down here, say, you don't even have to know who it's from. You just says, does it have an attachment? Right? Yes. And it's within 1 month of today. Search. There are all your emails that have an attachment that are within a month. Done. Like within not even a second. So super simple to do there. You're searching for all the things that have a PDF attachment. Done. Right? So Google helps you out. Just take a minute to look at it so that you don't miss out. Because I see a lot of people just kind of like scrolling. They have 10,000 emails in their inbox, and they just don't know what to do. And that's not a way to live. So don't do it. Okay, on to sort of an intermediate skill. Let's build a filter. So wouldn't it be nice if anytime I get an email from Andreas, it kind of pops out in my inbox? That'd be great. So how do we do that? Automatically, because I don't want to sit and filter stuff. I just want to be able to open and read and then archive, and it goes away, and I keep track of it that way. So I'm going to start by opening that email, and then I'm going to say, I'm going to click on the 3 dots up here, and I'm going to go to, you'll see some of the options here, like mark as unread, create event, things like that. I'm going to say filter messages like this. And then it'll say like, oh, well, we're looking at email from Andreas Johansson. And that's it. That's all we want. Keep the filters simple. So usually from a person. And then we're going to say, and then in the background, see how it kind of brings all of that up. All the emails from Andreas. Create a filter. What do you want to do? So first step is identifying what it is that you want to filter. So it could be email from a single person. Could be email from a mailing list. Could be emails that are telling you that someone's sharing something with you in Google Docs. What do you want to do? Well, I don't want to start. Well, let's start. I want to apply a label to it. And if I don't have a label, I'll make a new one. So I'll just name that label Andreas. And then I never want to send it to spam. I always want to mark it as important because maybe it's my boss. And I also want to apply that to 89 other matching conversations because Gmail, like, oh, here it is. I'll retroactively apply it. I'll create my filter. And so what's going to happen now is you're going to go back to your inbox. And then you'll notice that it has applied a filter here. So it says a label, Andreas. Right? I'll go back to my inbox. Here it is, right? A lot of stuff been labeled. But it's gray and dull and hard to read. So you come over here to your label on the left-hand side, click the 3 dots, label color, and you say, there you go, make it pop. Let me show you an example. So I'm going to email me again, right? I'm going to say, I'm going to email from the, you're not seeing this, I'm emailing from another account. Let's see there. Hello. Now come to me here momentarily, and then you'll see what I mean. So the benefit of labeling and the benefit of labeling automatically is tremendous in the sense that you have an idea of what is happening, who things are from, and they pop out. So the way I run labels is I label things like from my superintendent, from any of the directors that I work with, any of the principals that I work with. I want that to really stand out in my inbox because those are priority. As opposed to sort of just looking at all mail as being the same. I want my email to work for me, and I want it to be able to distinguish what's important and what's not. So here's your example. Here's the email that just came in, right? I sent it to myself. Popped in it in the important section. It started already, and it added the label. So visually, for me, it's easy to see. So you want to think about that. Visually, it's easy to see. So hopefully that makes sense. Notice that it also retroactively starred all of the other ones. So then I got a ton of starred items in here, and that's okay. So now I kind of blew up my priority inbox, so we'll leave that alone. But just that's one way of managing your email so you don't have to drive yourself crazy. We'll take a quick look and then in the settings for labels and what else you can do with it. So we'll go back to settings now that and we'll do one more filter so you have an idea, and then you can always rewind because that's something that gets people messed up. I'll write another filter so you have an idea of what we can do with it. But if you come back into the settings, you then have labels where you can say, well, I don't, I want to see these labels. I don't want to see them. And they coordinate with this section over here. So if you don't want to see any of the categories, if you don't want to see a spam, for example, right? So only show if it's unread. You never want to show the trash, draft only if it's unread, things like that. You can do that. But then also all of the labels that you have created yourself. So for example, this one here at rockets.spark, I don't want to see that anymore. So notice what happens with this label here. I'm going to say hide it, and it goes away. Copy request, I don't want to see that anymore. Some of these other ones, don't want to see it. IETRs, I don't want to see that. Hide it, and I can just clean up a little bit over here. If I don't want to see spam, come up here and say just don't show the spam, because it is important that you keep a clean table in order to make stuff happen. So that's a little bit about the labeling. Inbox we talked about. Let's go to accounts. You can pick up email from other mailing accounts. If you're at work, my recommendation is that you don't do that. If you're in your own Gmail account, you can do whatever you want. You could run 2 Gmails and they can both be picked up in the same account. You can pick up email from Yahoo in your Gmail account. That's a little bit more advanced. So if you wanted to do that, check, just search Gmail accounts on YouTube or in Google. Filters and blocked addresses. This is where you'll see all the filters that you built. And here's the latest one, right, that we built. So it says, if it matches from A. Johansson at SES Rockets, what do? We start, we apply the label, never send it to spam, mark it as important. And you can see some other ones here, like if it's from no reply and it has the words copy request, skip the inbox, apply the label, so on and so forth, if it's from Twitter. Sometimes, and I'll point this out for you, if for some reason your inbox gets compromised, say you click on a link and someone hijacks your Gmail account, which is a bad idea in general, but if that happens, sometimes there are some malicious codes out there that will then build a filter, and it'll very quickly do that, and it'll say, highlight, mark all email, hide it from you, and then delete anything that it sends out. So that's a quick way of kind of having your inbox send email on your behalf without you knowing it. So my recommendation is that you go in here and see which filters and so on that you're running. So just a quick heads up. Forwarding and pop, if you wanted to forward somewhere else, you would have to set that up here. One workflow that I run in my work email is when we get payroll notifications. Every once in a while we get paid. I don't really want to see that because I'm not in charge of it at home. So I just archive it, but I forward it over to my spouse. And so when that email comes in, I have a filter, a rule that says, if it's from payroll, don't show it to Andreas, forward it over to my spouse. Because she's in charge of the money. So it makes my life easier. It's one less email that I have to look at. So you could do that here. Also, if you needed to connect Gmail to sort of a third-party email application with POP or IMAP, you could do that, but that's a little bit more advanced. You could install some add-ons if you wanted to. We won't necessarily go over those. That depends on your domain. So if you're in a school domain, they might not allow you to have any add-ons in Gmail, so you would have to check with IT. Chat and Meet, that just basically says, do you want it on or off? And that's this stuff down here. So if you don't really want that, then just save your changes and then it'll reload, and then you just won't have to be bothered with chat. So that's kind of helpful. I'm going to turn it back on though, because I do use it sometimes. I'm going to chat, I'm going to say yes, hide, it'll reboot, and then it'll be back on. Let's say you never use it, or you use a different chat application and you don't ever need to use it, then there's no reason to see it. So that's kind of nice. Advanced, there's some settings here that you could use. There's some custom keyboard shortcuts, right side chat, things like that. Read through them, see if they make sense for you, and if they don't, that's okay too. Offline, again, depending on your admin setup, offline may or may not be available for you. It should be available in Gmail, so if you have a Gmail account, like at gmail.com, but it may not be available for your domain. And then lastly too, if you wanted to look at those themes, so let's do it just so that you have an idea. We'll pick the, I don't even know what this is, the snail theme, and then you go back and you get a pretty picture. I think it clutters up my workspace, so I tend to not use it. All right, we're going to build one more filter, and we're going to pick this one here. It says subscribe. Maybe we'll do two. So the way I start is I click on it. Here's my email that I want to filter, and I want to filter anything like this. And so notice that it'll say something has subscribed to you on YouTube. So this is the same. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to click those three dots, and I'm going to say filter messages like this. So it's going to come from no reply at youtube.com, and it's going to have the words. I'm going to paste that in, subscribe to you at YouTube, if that's what I want. And then I'm going to create filter from there. I'm not going to have it skip. I'm just going to apply a label. I'm going to say YouTube subscriber. Oops. Subscriber. Create. And then I'm going to apply that to the other 32 matching conversations, and I'm going to create the filter. And then I'll show you how to style it up. Again, this is what helps a lot of people. It'll kind of create that. It'll retroactively create it. And we'll go back to our inbox, and then here's our YouTube subscriber. And so if we make that new again, just for giggles here, why not then select the way YouTube looks? And so I think YouTube is like red and white, right? So you could do that one, that color automatically. And then, do I have that spelled right? I think it's spelled right. Then whenever you get a YouTube subscriber, it'll label it for you, and it stands out, and you're able to see it. And so you could do that with really anything. The key is to think about what you know about the email that you want to filter and go from there. And I'll show you again because it's worth highlighting. What we do at our domain is we put this on automatically. Anytime we get an email, and we do this on the domain side. So anytime we get an email from outside the domain, I do this as a domain administrator. I add external source on there because I need our people to know, I need our staff, our students to know that this email is not sent internally. This email is coming from outside. So we can do the same thing. And all we would need to do is we just grab the brackets and the text. I copy that, right? So I could do copy. Go to filter. And then it doesn't have to have the mailing list, but it does have to have the words in the subject area, external source. And then do a search with that. Right, so that's a lot that has that. And then I'm going to create a filter, and I'm going to apply the label, external, and then I'm going to apply it to matching conversations, which will be a lot. And then we're back, and it's external, and then I want to highlight that as a label color, and I might make it green or whatever it might be. So now I make that pop in my inbox. And so now we're starting to make it happen. Notice that you can have an email with more than one label. So that's okay. So this is both an external email and it's about a YouTube subscriber. So that's kind of cool. Now notice that this email does not have it, right? Because this is an internal, safe email conversation. So that's kind of handy. Anything that's in bold, I haven't read. Anything that's in here, everything else that's not bold, I have read. So then I should go through and say, well, I read it, archive, boom. And why should I archive and not delete? Well, because I can search and find email from someone within just a couple of key clicks and a couple of seconds worth of my time. Remember, again, most of the time you know who it's from, you know about what time, and you know about what the email is about. You'll be able to find stuff. So at the end of the day, challenge yourself to have close to an inbox 0, especially in the important and unread and then everything else. I'm looking at my real one up here on my other monitor. I have like 22 in the important section, and then I have 9 that are starred, and then I have 3 in the everything else. But the stuff that's up in that important one is important, so I need to work with that today after this call, and that'll be my job because I don't really like to go to bed with 100 emails. That makes me nervous because I want to try to respond to it. So there you have it. If you have any questions, shoot them my way over here in the text, in the message. I'm going to send you the link for where to get your certificate of attendance for this session. And then all of the recordings will be on our website. They should be up later today, so I'll get them processed as soon as possible here. I appreciate you spending some time with me this afternoon. Hope you guys all have a good school year. And if you have any questions, just don't feel free to, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll put the contact information on that link as well. So if you go to the recordings and resources, the dedicated website, we'll have our emails on there. So if you want to reach out and say, hey, how did you make that filter? Or I have this problem, or I'm trying to get rid of all the Google Classroom notifications, things like that, we'll be happy to help you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.